Okay, so today is our last meeting, and the first question I have is with regard to the possibility of holding a sketching workshop. In the past, we've held 2 of them, sometime after Thanksgiving and before the end of the semester. They're usually made up of about 3 or 4 faculty who go. Sometimes just people who are interested in assisting, not even people who are going to be teaching the program. And we try to get around 10 or 12 students at least. The more students, we get more faculty. The idea is to go out into San Antonio somewhere. If it's a miserable day, we're inside. If it's a very nice day, we're outside. And to do some sketching, begin to think about those fountain pens. Is there anyone who's interested in that? We would hold it also on a Wednesday at this time, but after the Thanksgiving holiday, before the winter break. Okay, good. Because I will do it. I'll be more than happy to do it. I think it's kind of fun because I get to kind of see your lines a little bit. Something I can build on when we get over there. So I will definitely do that. Make time of it. First of all, I wanted to go over this one handout that's dated the 11th here, the 13th rather, and it's page 1 of 3. And it's the Culture and Theory readings. There's only one required textbook for the course that you have to buy the textbook, and that is Metternich. Metternich should be a fairly easy read, okay? But it's going to be very critical because it's one of the 2 foundations or 3 foundations for your assignments in the class. And so you have to read it very carefully. The other readings for the class that are required are in the form of PDF files. And we'll show you that in a minute. Gordon Cullen. Have any of you heard of Gordon Cullen besides Buddy? Gordon Cullen. You'll love his work because he's not didactic in a way. He just gives you an outline of ways to consider, ways to look at public space especially. But to look at public, can you put your phone down, please? I'm sorry. I don't compete well, I'm sorry. I get nervous around that. Mark knows. I've stolen his phone 4 or 5 times. He's on his 5th phone. I have a stash of them. I've been selling them. How do you think I can afford the pizza? Thank you. Anyway, he brings up this idea called serial vision, which is the notion that we can begin to understand the space of a city through sequential movement through the city. Okay? And so that becomes a very interesting way to do some of our analysis. Anyway, Iver de Wolf is in there. Danielle Pauly. Some of them are here. Some of them are already waiting for you guys. They're waiting. It's the hardest part. He just died. Okay. Iver de Wolf paid particularly close attention to diagrams because you're going to be redrawing them. Danielle Pauly, there's a few pages where he describes the architectural promenade, which is the movement up to and inside of Grand Champ. And to me, those 7 or 8 pages are beautifully written in such a way that you can begin to really appreciate the notion of the promenade as a framework for design. Okay, so the notion of walking through space now as a framework for actually doing the design. Zucker is still, in my opinion, the absolute best background for the development of public space and structure of the city in Europe that there is, and it was published ages ago. John McKean is the only book in English on De Carlo's work which is worth reading. And these are 4 separate sections which are crucial. Cornell notation is to be done for all the readings, okay, please. And so on the next page, I'm giving you the template. Please follow the template. Look closely at it and follow the template. There's a part of the template is the first page of every chapter or section, and then the subsequent pages of every chapter or section. Okay, so look closely at that. I invested a little bit of time into the template to try to help you. But I realize that there's very little information there, relatively speaking. So, page 3 of 3, I have some additional thoughts on the Cornell method. The Cornell method still is considered the best way to take notes and the way that you can internalize the material the quickest. Because you actually enter into a dialogue with your own writing. Because you take notes and then you go back and you take notes of your notes. And it kind of explains it. But it's a very good way to take books, because not all of us are A readers, right? And so we have to read slowly, and so by taking notes, we actually begin to make connections within the reading, and make connections to the reading, which I think are very worthwhile. If you have any questions whatsoever on this, just throw me an email. It's not that big of a deal. Most of the time, your answers will be in these 3 pages. Okay? 2 years ago, I didn't have one of these. I put it together for last year. So I put it together 2 years ago. Anyway, before I put it together, I just said Cornell method. You can figure out the Cornell method, right? And they said, oh yeah, no problem. And they found out it was different than they thought. Right? Because it's not merely taking your notes in a legible fashion. It's being able to look at what you're reading and try to understand what the cues are. And so take a look at this and make sure that you understand it. That shouldn't be too difficult. But those are the required readings. To show you what they look like, I've opened, can you hit the lights back to water, please? Otherwise we can't see this. I don't know whether you guys have all got this link. Does anyone not get this link to OneDrive? You still haven't gotten it?
No, I don't think I got it.
Calvin didn't get it.
British didn't get it either.
Okay. Well, we know that. Okay. Calvin, Chris, British. Yeah. If your name begins with a B or C, there's a likelihood you didn't get it. Is that what we're saying? We're finding a trend here. Okay, I'll make sure you get resent the link. I thought I resent them all, but I will make sure I do that again. This is what your OneDrive will look like. It has material which are in, so far I only have one folder here, which is this one. This is a series of dozens of pages. In fact, I think most of a book that my wife copied at one point to assist in understanding the work of Carlos Scarpa. And there's hundreds of pages in that book, and so you'll find that there's a lot within that. Hey, Eddie, what are you doing here? Just like moving in on me? It's always a pleasure to see you. Anything that's marked with an IT19 is the prep material. So the packing list is right here. The schedules, the latest schedules are right here. Information about the camera. The Margaret Fuller writing is right here. The Bologna Guide is right here, right? This is the latest one that was placed in there, which is your pre-departure checklist, which we're going to go over shortly. I put the whole DiCarlo presentation in here specifically for Chris, and then forgot to send a link to me, so I feel bad about that. When you see something that says optional, it means that it's an optional reading that you can read and get extra credit for, provided you complete all the other ones. Make sense? Okay. So this is an optional one. This is a short article on DeCarlo's involvement with Urbino. Here's the recent Urbino conservation report, which was just released about a month ago. Monica Mazzolani and Antonio Twassi were involved in that. And it's just interesting. It's well worth reading. So that's optional. Pre-departure booklet is what it looks like here. This is provided by GEV, and I'm going to go over it in a minute. Because they have not sent a new one to you, I'm giving you the one from last year. There will be one or two minor changes in it, but it's going to be essentially the same booklet. When it says required, it's a required reading. So required Gordon Cullen. Required Cullen is in two parts. DeWolf, John McKean, right? Hawley. So they're all required. So you'll be able to go through and find right away whether or not you have to read it. It'll be on your syllabus, of course it is, and it's on that page. But the actual PDFs are on OneDrive. When it says resource, it's a resource. So it's something that you may need when you're over there. Maybe you read it ahead of time. I have the resource, for example, DeCarlo's actual, most, like 80% of the Urbino report that he put together, starting in '58 and finishing the English edition in '64, I think. So I've got a huge hunk of that in here as well. And that's divided into 3 sections because of how big it is. So as we get more resources, they will go on here. They're going to OneDrive. If Monica and Antonio send anything that they want you to look at ahead of time, sometimes they send drawings for some of the sites that we are looking into. I will make sure they get up on OneDrive too. And I'll make sure Chris, and maybe even British, get their links. Okay? Any questions on that? The whole thing? Good. And Buddy, if you have anything that you want to put up on OneDrive, you'll let your students know, okay? Does that make sense? Or if you want to share it with me and then I can put it up, it's fine. This is the report or the pre-departure booklet that you'll be getting from GEV. And this is last year's version, but it's going to be, as I said, very similar. And there's a lot of information in it. Right? So it talks about a lot that you already understand. Phones, traveling, essentials for traveling, packing. There's a difference between winter attire, which is spring semester, and fall attire. Talks about the clothes washing that you'll be doing. So this will answer a lot of the questions that you may have about what do you need to know to live in Urbino. Talks about the deposit. Originally it was 200. Last year they dropped it to 100 euros, and it never registered with me because I've been telling you 200. It's actually 100. So when you land, make sure you have 100 euros with you. Actually, $100 is fine. And because that money is going to go for your room deposit. And you get that money back at the end. So far, we've never had a single student not get the full money back, besides Eddie. No, it's not true. You got your money back. Don't give me that. You weren't that bad. You were a good student. I mean, he's pretending he was a rough kind of guy, but he wasn't. Other information in here that's important. You'll find that there's a behavior contract, there's a waiver of liability, and there's a housing agreement. And they're actually in here. You'll be filling them out when you're there. Okay, it's all standard material. It talks about the facilities. It shows you where the campus is. The diagrams aren't as interesting as mine. Modique, right? All of this that you'll see. But you'll also find these images of the rooms. So you can start to see the rooms that you'll be. This is the kitchen area. This is a dining public area, closet public. And these are some of the bedrooms there. just so you have an idea of what these dorms are like, I'm sure you're wondering, and you may not have seen anything yet. What else is here? There may be one or two more things to mention. Nope? Nope, I think that's it. So read through it and understand that it's last year, so that this year it's going to be a little different. It could probably be an address different, or maybe Roberta will have a different title than she did last year because they changed her job description. She actually gets paid a lot more than she did, which is good because she has to keep those wings in pristine condition. Anyway, take a look at the booklet. Again, if you have questions on it, send them off to me. I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. You can turn the lights on now. That's all I have from here, from the pulpit. Thank you. Okay. How many of you are going to Bologna first for a couple days? Who knows? Do it. What? That doesn't count. No. I mean, if you're going to be there for a few days, my guide will help, but I'm also putting up online a section from a book which is called Great Streets. And it's a beautiful little 8 or 10 page writing about the fabric of Bologna. And I think it's incredibly intriguing. You have to realize that Bologna, perhaps more so than any other Italian city, has this incredibly intact fabric. And we're not talking about like individual buildings. In fact, it kind of lacks the monuments that you find in a place like Florence. But the fabric is absolutely fascinating to study. And this is a worthwhile 8 or 10 pages to look at. You start to realize that it's considered one of the greatest urban fabrics because of the streets in the entire world. And there's miles and miles of arcaded streets. Okay? So these arcades give a very different feel, very different spatial quality to the city. And there's some very interesting ways that the street opens itself into a piazza, for example. So that's going to be in there. It's not updated. It's not put up into the OneDrive yet.
Don't stay at the airport hotel.
Don't stay in the old Jewish ghetto.
Don't stay where all the students party all
Exactly.
night. So,
Yeah. Okay, the checklist. And again, you got questions, throw them at me. I'm ready for them. I'll try to answer it. So I try to put a few bits of information here. They're in no particular order. I recommend getting vaccinated for flu, like all of you. Just do it, unless you're like, for some reason, fearful of needles, which could be. Try to get it done before the 15th of January. Like you can just go to Walgreens or something like that.
no, you should get it done now. Yeah, get it done now. It's supposed to take like 2 weeks to have it in practice.
That's why it says January
They
15th.
were free.
Monday through Friday, 1 to 4, they're free here at the downtown campus.
Hey, what?
Monday to Friday, 1 to 4, free at downtown campus.
So you have to schedule an appointment as well. I think so. Yeah, so make sure you do that.
Schedule it. This is good. You guys are already like giving the real information out.
And the Fresno Street with like the students, right?
Frio Street, just to the left.
It's like on the 4th floor.
It's on the 4th now?
I think.
I thought they moved it. You can ask. You can just go over there and ask in the police area or at the reception near the fiscal, and they'll tell you. Okay. Flight and itinerary. I have 12 of them from you guys. Thank you. I must have all of them. Otherwise, here's what happens. You won't have a room ready for you when you go there. Because I have to collect them first, I bundle them together, and I send them off to Mirko. Okay, so if you don't get your flight information to me, there's not a room for you when you get there. Which is okay. Living on the street in Urbino could be worse. right? But for the most part, you want to get them to me as soon as you get that ticket information. How long were you on the street, for example, Eddie? Or, you know, when you arrived, because you didn't like send me your flight information, and you got there, and you were like living out behind the, he put a little tent up and things, and it's kind of nice, it's cozy. Some of you may want to consider the possibility of a medical bracelet. I'm a bike rider, I ride my bike, I didn't bring it today, but I have a medical bracelet that I wear when I'm on my bike, because if something happens to me and I end up spaghetti, right, could happen, I want them to call my wife and say, "You're free." You know, so I have one of the ones. I always wonder why I wear that when I go bicycling, now I know. Now you know, but this is important. Some of you, like if you're allergic to nuts or something, oddly enough, that may be helpful, right? Because if you eat something that was made with some sort of ground nut and all of a sudden, boom, you're over, it's like, oh, it's kind of funny. No, it's not. Medical bracelet, allergic to nuts. Only if you are. You don't have to be like me and there's pizza. We should stop and have pizza, shouldn't we?
Yes.
Yes! Okay, let's stop and have pizza. Okay, so we're just saying, if you have any kind of condition that in the condition of emergency you want to convey to a nurse or a doctor, I would get a medical bracelet, period. Right? Architectural supplies, I'm not going to go over these again, except for to say a couple of things. I just bought 10 of these puppies. All right, it's like $160. I'm not going to use them all. I'm going to lend a few to my wife. She'll fill them, and then they become very, very worthy. They become worth a lot, and I keep them afterwards. But please consider, this is only on plastic, but put your name on them. Put your name in them. They all look the same. Right? Just put your name on them.
Not just your name. You need contact information,
Yeah.
which is not a US phone number, because if you lose it abroad, nobody's going to call a US phone number because they don't have international plans.
But they will send an email.
Yeah, you do like whatever you guys do. Facebook, I don't know what you do, but something somebody can contact you with. Because we've had students, nobody thinks theirs is going to be lost, and then we have students who are miserable because they lost their sketchbooks. If they left in a restaurant or something, and if they had had an easy kind of contact, I think they would have gotten it back.
I offer a 20-euro
You can offer a reward, you can, but sort of contact that you would expect somebody to not have to pay money to notify you.
So make sure, please make sure that you get the right sketchbooks. Use the ISBN number I gave you. I did give you an ISBN number. Actually use that number, because there are plenty of Moleskine sketchbooks which look like they have more pages, they must be better, and you find out that they're not. Okay, I gave you the ISBN number to assist you in getting the right book. These also arrived, by the way, so I don't know why I'm holding them up. I'm advertising for Moleskine, I guess. Traveling with a fountain pen. I want to mention a couple things about that. First of all, after the meeting, I can show you the TWSBIs, because I have all 3 of the TWSBIs that I'm recommending here with me as well, or at least 2 of them. A little bag for the pens. The ritual of taking the pen out, putting the pen away, cleaning the pen, keeping it clean, actually is very beneficial. I've never lost a fountain pen. I don't know many of them, many. And I've never lost one. And part of it is just the way, it's not that I have a better memory than you guys, I certainly don't. But the act of taking it out, of using it, of cleaning it, putting it back in. Speaking of cleaning it, if you have this was supposed to look like Italy, no it wasn't. Just a cotton cloth without any lint-free, that you use it to clean. You may be able to find something over there, of course, but you'll want to do it here, just to have it with you, a cloth that you can wrap up and put in with your fountain pens. And we'll work with you on maintaining the pens and making sure that they're kept clean. It's not difficult once you learn how to clean them and take care of them. When you're traveling with your fountain pen, please make sure the ink is not in the cartridge when you get on the plane, because the pressure change can lead to seepage of the ink, leaks, pretty serious leaks, and it can get everywhere. So I recommend just taking out the cartridge, tossing it, and using a new cartridge when you get over there. The other thing, as far as traveling with a fountain pen, this is a test. Let's have a little baggie around it. Right? It's a vial of ink. And so some of you are getting pens like the TWSBIs, which don't have cartridges. And you have to take ink in bottles. And even though I'm not going to take this exact bottle over there with me, I want to test this little vial to make sure it doesn't leak. I'll take an actual bottle with me, right? But when I'm over there in Italy, this little vial can hold 5 to 6 different refills in your pen. So this is 5, 6 cartridges at least, maybe more than that, in this little vial. And so I'm testing it now. These are available jet pens. You get a package of like 6 or 8 of them or something for $5. I'm testing it, and I will let you know whether it works. So far, it's pretty good. See how it works. The other thing to mention is, where is it? I have too many pockets in here. I only have one. I thought I brought several of these with me. I brought some syringes. I do not
Show
see
us
the
the
syringe.
one. You have one, just show us the one you have, right?
Nah, I wanted syringes. I have a lot of syringes.
You could back.
Yeah, I did, but they're not in here. These are my pencils. Okay, too many bags. Too many bags. I'm a bag man. I have maybe 5 or 6 extras of these. If you're a bottle person and not a cartridge person, this is how I fill my pens. I can refill cartridges with it too. It's blunt. I mean, it's not a sharp one, so you're not going to be accused of robbing from a diabetic. But you can, again, you can buy them online very, very inexpensively. They're non-medical syringes, and I think they end up being like $1 a piece or something. But because of the metal, they actually fit into the cartridge. There's some of the plastic ones you can get at Azel's, which cost 5 or 10 times more, don't fit the cartridges, so these do. So I will not be bringing them with me, but when we get together during the sketch outing, I will make sure I bring those 5 or 6 extras, and those of you who are interested in them, I'll give them to you. I have no use for using more than 1 or 2 at a time. I really don't need 2. I have them. Okay, family of colors. And I know that word was very odd, but I wanted to, you can look at this afterwards, I wanted to show you the ones I'm traveling with. These are the Prismacolors, because every year people bring the most god-awful colors with them. And when you're sketching, you're not using a color to jump out at you necessarily and take over your sketch. You're looking for a color which supports the process of sketching. And over the years, my wife has developed a palette that she'll use, and I've developed a very different palette. The only thing in common, I think, is white, maybe. French gray. Yeah, French gray. I love the warm grays. But you're more than welcome to see it, and we can talk about what family means. I think of them as being related colors which are related and not bright. Almost all of them are tinted, which means there's an inclusion of white in them. A shade is a color which has black in it. These are tints, which is the color plus white. And they work much better than really bright, bold colors will. So you can look at that afterwards. I'm going to bring a brush and maybe some paint with me too, just because I can't use it, and you need to see the fact that I can't do any watercolors. But I will try. I will try. That'll be what I'm trying to learn this time. I know I mentioned it before. A studio travels on warm shoes and full stomach. Don't be like Rolly last year. Rolando insisted on not having warm socks and wool socks, and he was miserable all semester. So, leather shoes. Okay, next page, spring break schedule. Just a reminder, you need to look at your schedule page and make sure that if you do have people visiting you, they know when spring break is. So go back to the schedule page and look at it. What you will find is it's not the same week as it is here at UTSA. Okay? So do be aware of that, because I think that's very, very important. Hats. How many percent of your body heat goes out through your head? They used to, when we were young, they lied to us. They said like 80%, which is bogus, right? We all know that. It's probably only bogus. It's probably only about 60% or something, but it's less. We lose. You lose like most people.
Say it.
It's like 10 or 15% or something.
It's less. But having said that, you wear a hat. Eddie had the best hat. You wear a hat and you actually stay warm. And so again, a monkey hat like that I would recommend not wearing. Can you model that for us, Scott? No. However, having some sort of wool cap, some fleece that can go over your ears, warm up your ears, or else grow your hair long, Chris. You know, that may be okay. Clothing, I already went over that before. Italians are pretty cool. They dress pretty cool. They look pretty good. You know, I think Americans look shabby, really shabby in comparison. And I think that you can look really good and not pay a lot of money, if you know what I mean. Or you can choose to look shabby. Your choice. I mean, I'm going to bring my fedora. On my fedora over there. Please check the weather ahead of time. It's going to be miserable, I'm sure. And that way, if it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and we'll be very happy. But please check it. On my previous email, there was a list. Actually, weather conditions is on a scattered note on the first page. It gives you 2 sites for weather information. It's worth looking at that as well. I'm still a big fan of the MERS. And you can see how many things you have to carry with you. You know, if you don't want to carry a MERS, the problem with something larger is that the phone is out and I'm starting to slow down. I have a bad problem with phone, I'm sorry. I know you're probably looking right at these things, ordering the watercolors right now. It's one of those problems I have. You just have to excuse me. Thank you, thank you. There's a lot of things you carry, and what happens is you can't carry them with you, then you'll be unprepared. And you know, there's been many times that all of a sudden you need your umbrella. And you're not going to walk around carrying your umbrella, are you? Because then you're not going to be sketching. So it's important, I think it's important to carry those with you. It doesn't have to be a Tom bin, because not all of us can afford putting that kind of money into something. But it should be relatively water resistant. okay? And I think that's important. Please, no fanny packs. I mean, there's only so much you want to look like an ugly tourist, and that's over the limit. And remember, backpacks are generally not going to be permitted in museums. Not that we're going to be spending a lot of time
I
in.
did switch to an urban backpack because all the weight and everything kept
Yeah.
hurting my shoulder.
I did.
The unevenness too. But then there'll be other times I will, we know mostly in advance the places that forbid backpacks, although they keep changing. Like out of the blue, San Marco last year said no backpacks, and we're like, what? It had just changed between year to year, and you had to go check in all these, your backpacks elsewhere, which was extremely inconvenient. We lost a lot of time. So having some other option besides the urban backpack, but I do tend to use a smallish backpack. As
Taking a
long as I
backpack
can
on.
fit water, umbrella, a little jacket, and my sketchbook and pencils all in there.
And
That's what I carry.
the puffy. And I'm not a big fan of puffies. I hate them, in fact. But the fact that this one weighs, how much does that weigh?
Like nothing.
Like,
No. No, it's really, like 8 ounces, 10 ounces, I don't know, it weighs almost nothing. But it actually wads up into a little pouch. And you can carry, it gets half this size, actually, you can keep wadding it. But this can go right into, yeah, it's nice. But this can go, you can't carry a heavy coat with you, but you can carry these. So there's a thought that when we're traveling somewhere, you may want to carry more than just your sketchbook and your fountain pen. You carry the water bottle, you carry the umbrella, you may carry a guidebook with you or something. And these things add up. And so you want to
Snacks.
definitely low sugar snacks as well. Check the weight limits. Those of you who have purchased tickets already for airplanes, do check your weight limits. Just get in the habit of taking less than you think.
The weight limits.
That way you can bring olive oil
The
back.
weight limits seem like an inconvenience that the
Bribe your professor.
airport imposes on you, but really, when you land is when it's far more burdensome that you have a very heavy bag. Because where you're gonna get dropped off on the bus and where your housing is like straight uphill. It's like climbing a ski slope of brick. And so you have to haul that bag up a brick street that is very steep. People, I mean, you really kind of want to carefully consider each piece and try to go for the lighter weight choice. That's why, I mean, I love a beautiful wool coat, but I never bring one because it's just too heavy. So I end up with some synthetic thing like that, plus a raincoat because it's too heavy. Or packing a lot of jeans ends up being too heavy, so you try to get some things that are synthetic so they'll be lighter. And all the weight adds up so that whatever the international flight weight, is it 50 pounds now? Even if it might seem, well, what's the problem? I could just roll this into the airport, everything's paved. That's not the issue when you get over there. Yes, it is. That's not the issue when you get over there to Urbino and you have to take your suitcase up flights of stairs. I don't believe Casa della Studentessa has an elevator at all.
probably
You
our
might be on
salons.
the fourth, or you might be on the fourth floor. Very often your hotels will be on the fourth or fifth floor and you don't have an elevator. So you're always thinking about weight and trying to minimize that weight in what you bring. I think we've already said don't bother bringing a lot of toiletries and stuff because you just bring a little sample size and you can buy most everything you're used to over there. So,
Exactly. Two things which are worth carrying with you. I'm a big fan of external drives, especially when you can get 3 tera on a drive this big. But I also carry a couple of thumb drives. And when we do print things out, when we're over there's a couple places to print in town, we use our thumb drives. If we put a presentation together and we're going to be showing it collectively, we're using your thumb drive. But these are absolutely lousy for actual storage. They're good for transfer, but they're not for storage. You drop it once and you lose everything. You run it through a magnetic detector too many times and you lose everything in it. So I back up here. You can back up on the cloud. Get used to backing stuff up. I keep a duplicate file of everything I have here. And part of it is because I have lectures to give. We have lectures to give, and would hate to show up there and not have a lecture. Sorry, my computer lost it. So anyway, I carry those. Other items which are worth thinking about. We're going to be going to a winery slash olive orchard, and we're going to be tasting wine and olive oil. And if you're like me, you become addicted to the olive oil in Matakay. I know you like the olive oil.
I was a fun day.
Yeah. We're doing that earlier in the semester because I think it introduces them to the culture, whereas a couple years ago it didn't. We didn't do it till the end of the semester. But we get a tour by the man who runs the winery. Whereas in Italy, you speak to the people who actually make the wine, which is very nice. Anyway, you'll want to bring some of that olive oil back with you, and therefore it always helps to take less weight with you on the way there, so you can bring something back, right? Olive oil, not wine necessarily. You can take 2 bottles. You can bring 2 bottles back. Ziplocs. I've not seen Ziplocs in Italy. They may exist. Maybe in the bigger cities. Maybe Milan has Ziplocs. And I just need to look more. But what I simply do is take a dozen with me. Right? You're using them for everything. You're using them for pencils, cosmetics, medications, snacks, anything you happen to, tea bags. I bring my own tea bags because it's very difficult to find tea in Italy, especially herbal tea. So I bring all my own tea bags, and I bring them all in Ziplocs. So things like that can be very useful. I seriously recommend earplugs. In part, you're living in a city, and the earplugs will help you, right? But also it helps on airplanes, and it helps when you're traveling. I would definitely bring some with you. I've never seen them. I'm sure they have them in Italy somewhere. Probably in Rome. There's 3 or 4 pair, maybe. See, this, I said 150. I think it's only 100. It's $100 or euros for the room deposit. Not 150, not 200, it's 100.
I think they get some information from Roberta. You're gonna get a whole package.
Yes,
from them.
I showed them the packet. We talked a little bit about it, but I showed them. Last year's packet is in the OneDrive, which Chris doesn't have access to. Neither does British. They don't. Calvin doesn't. But everyone else does, so we're fine. Faculty itineraries will be sent to you. I collect them from all the faculty, and I'll make sure you have them so you know where we are. Okay, that's critically important that you know where we are. Because I may be stuck in New York State.
Does this happen?
This has happened.
Has this happened? Mark and Professor Fish spent, 48 hours stuck in the Atlanta airport, or at least 36 hours stuck in the Atlanta airport during a snowstorm, and all the students went on ahead from various other locations and did arrive, and the faculty were stuck
So
in the
Norma
United
did all
States.
the phone calling. She was
So,
in San Antonio. She made sure everyone knew where we were.
So that's
Don't
another
worry
reason,
about
that's another
this.
reason they need the itinerary information, because there is this chance that you might arrive and other faculty have not arrived. And so that all gets passed on to the people in charge after you arrive.
Why didn't we have our snow hike last year?
Because there was a blizzard going on,
That's
and
right.
we had scheduled this nice snowshoe hike through the mountains, and then there was a bona fide blizzard with high winds, and they said there was too much snow for the snow hike. That was very disappointing.
Yeah. Maybe my syringes are in here. Oh, you know what's in here? Norma hates this. I'm an Al bankrupt.
I call it.
I'm a thug. There we go. I feel better already. Oh, okay. I know it's not our style, and I know it's terrible. The things I do when you turn your back. Right? This is terrible. If you're arriving early, any of you arriving into Rome early, by the way?
Already emailed you my itinerary.
Okay, but no, I'm not talking about if you want to know what to do in Rome, when you have some extra days, just email me again and I'll make sure I tell you. The reason being is that there's so many things to do in Rome. You could be in Rome for a year and still not exhaust them all. It's that dense of a city. I just don't want you to do things necessarily that we're going to turn and do as a group. So I'll direct you to things which I think may be very engaging and give you a range of things to do. But of course, getting the DK guidebook to Rome would also be beneficial if you're going to arrive early for that. And finally, is there anything else on the back page? Contact your bank. There's nothing like arriving in Italy and finding your credit card has been cut off. And then, no, it's not a big deal. Take you a couple phone calls and et cetera, et cetera. But it's just so upsetting to get off the airplane, to smell that Italian coffee, and realize that your bank card doesn't work, that your credit card doesn't work, because your bank thinks you're in, in San Antonio.
Most of the
Okay?
credit card companies have a way to notify them online about your expected, which countries you plan to go to and which dates will be gone. And if you get that in advance, then the little computer algorithm will log your card
Yes.
to see you.
And tell them when you're coming back too, and what cities you
And as you're there, you can even make changes.
Yes.
When you plan to go on spring break, you can add new travel information to block your card. We found it was helpful to have at least 2 means of credit. So maybe if your bank account has a debit card.
What she's saying is that I lost a credit card. Okay,
Maybe
that's,
your,
read between the lines, I did.
If your bank has a debit card and you have a credit card, it's a little bit of a backup in case something goes wrong with one, that you won't have 0 access to money. But other than that, I think we told everybody maybe already, but I know I see new faces of people who haven't arrived. Find out what your bank's fees are and how much you're going to expect to pay each time. Some of them charge really a lot of money, a very high foreign exchange rate, plus a very high rate every time you withdraw money from the ATM. So the ATMs look just like our ATMs. No problem, you can choose your language. So you might think, oh, I'm just going to pull out $10, pull out $10, pull out $10, and find out you're being charged $5 each time you actually use the ATM machine. So then there's always the balance between, do I carry a big wad of cash? Well, that could be a problem if it gets stolen. But I can guarantee you're going to be probably paying at least $5 a shot just to withdraw the money each time you use an ATM, if not even higher. And some banks have much better arrangements with other international banks. There might be an ATM machine. It used to be our bank, Bank of America, which I actually don't really like, but I'm kind of stuck with it. Had an arrangement with certain banks in Italy or in France. If we use those, we didn't have to pay that fee each time. And then a few people, I'm actually a great fan of local credit unions, but a few people with kind of local credit unions found out they had problems. They weren't on the same kind of ATM, Cirrus thing that allowed them to use, they actually could not use the ATM machines in Urbino, which was a huge problem. So these are all questions to try to find out more about your own bank and how it's going to work for you to withdraw money internationally, what fees you'll be paying, and with your credit cards as well. There are certain international travel cards that, if you are getting a credit card for the first time, there are certain credit cards, international, which don't have they have better foreign exchange rates, or they don't charge that fee to withdraw while you're traveling.
Do you have any questions as you get that?
This is
Any
since the
questions
last
right
meeting,
now?
it's kind of, should open up to their questions.
Yeah, and plus, Buddy, if you want to also talk a little
Or
bit,
introduce
introduce
yourself.
yourself.
Introduce
They haven't
yourself.
met you yet. I mean, yes, we want you to,
Hello.
Buddy.
Actually, I know there are a few students here that I've had before. I'm Buddy Meir. I'm going to be teaching the design studio in the second half of the semester. I also know Italy very well. I know about Italian food. I know,
Cinema, opera, I mean,
and
this is Mr. Culture.
and I know that Well, I'm planning to have something called a movie night, in which we will get together at our hotel, look at a movie, and then discuss it. And the movies that I've selected, and they're all on reserve if you want to preview them, but I will have them with me, and we will look at them together. And in each of the movies, architecture is an important character in the movie, so that's why they were chosen. And they're all Italian films and in Italy.
Any Fellini?
Yeah, 3.
I'm ready. Satiricon, here I come.
No, I'm not doing satire. That's a studio shot.
Yeah. But no, this is actually very crucial because, you know, we're in Italy, the connection to the culture is an important one. You'll be submerged within Urbino, yes, but because you'll be kind of clinging together like barnacles, you can imagine that, right? You don't necessarily have the exposure to the depth of the Italian culture, which we think will be very valuable. And one of our accesses into that Italian culture is through other art forms. And as architects and designers, we're continuously drawing from a whole range of allied disciplines. And this is a wonderful opportunity to talk about things which are both Italian and are very, very instructive as far as space is concerned, as far as camera movement. This stuff is very related to architecture. It's not like watching Matrix again, right? These are very good films. They're not just movies, they're great
And
films.
also, the Italians invented opera. So
And love, too, right?
when it hits your eye like a big piece of pie, that's more, yeah. That too. But you'll find that in almost every town, there is a local opera house, which either has visiting singers or, singers that reside in the town. So hopefully we can find those and go to them.
Yes.
There are
as a
also
Rosebud.
fabulous operas in the big cities, but they tend to be really expensive. A seat at La Scala is about $600. I would not recommend going there. But I think we'll go and we'll see and we'll have a fabulous time.
This is all part of your education, too. It's not just coursework in a way. Don't think that travel, I know, Eddie, you're here, maybe you want to say
Eddie.
something as well, because
So Eddie's
you're an alumni and a very valued student at this program, because he came to our program and survived.
So how did you meet Italians?
How did I meet Italians? Okay, it's going to sound really bad, but we usually all meet them at bars.
Yeah.
So, but just be smart about what you do. If you go out, don't go out on your own. Go out with friends and just keep, take care of each other because, we don't want any problems. But yeah, through coffee shops during the day, and they're super friendly people. They're very open to talk to a young group of students like you guys. So if you're shy, you're probably going to become a social butterfly over there. It tends to happen. So yeah, they'll probably ask a lot about our culture because they're actually very interested in it. So that's a little, starting point to talk to them about. And what else?
If bars are not your thing.
Yeah.
There were 2 liberal arts students who became very active in the local church gathering there, and they have a really cool priest, by the way, a Franciscan who wanders around town there in his robes. And they got invited, they participated in all the Easter events and actually met people through their church, and they went to family meals together. I think they host, so if you're not interested in bars.
Yeah, there is other options of they have I know Urbino has the piazza. A lot of people just little coffee shops there, and during the nighttime they all come out and they just sit there, socialize, and it's another option. Little panino, and I remember that, it was fun. But what else? On spring break, I will say, I don't know if they've said it already, but plan it ahead of time. Because if you wait until the last minute to actually do all the planning for spring break, it's not. It'll be a lot more expensive, and it's just going to be chaos. So
Yeah, I recommended kind of in February, early, mid-February.
How many cities, I mean, every year people have these ridiculous itineraries of 4 major cities in 6 days or 7 days, and then they always come back saying, oh, I wish we just had spent more time in Paris, you know, instead of losing all the spring break to travel and going through airport security from city.
definitely. I went to 2. We went to Paris and Barcelona. So pretty much Paris was for 2 days and Barcelona the rest of the spring break. But try not to do more than 2 locations because, like Ms. Bazar was saying, it's just not going to work out. It's not going to be fun and pleasant for anyone. If you're gonna travel in groups of 4 or less, or 2 or so. Because usually what tends to happen is that when you travel in large groups of 8, 12, it doesn't go well.
It's called the lowest common denominator syndrome.
Yeah.
Who's ever the weakest person in a group becomes the one who actually controls the group. Oh, let's go to this museum. I feel like just sitting down and having a glass of wine. Oh, let's do that. I feel like just sitting down and having a glass of wine. And so what does the 12 of you do? You sit down and have a glass of wine, and no one goes to the museum. So it's always, you can probably see this in your own studio projects when you're working in groups, right? It's always the weakest person who drives the group. The group stumbles all upon themselves. It's not because of the strongest people, it's the weakest one. So you always want to run with people who are much stronger than you, and you need to act as strong as they are. Right, that's the trick. It's not, you know, so, but larger groups mean a greater chance of doing nothing. Smaller groups are much
Did
more.
you get all
doable.
your reading done before you were barred?
Okay.
No.
Okay, so yeah, start reading now. I mean, I did finish, but I would suggest start reading like at least a month in advance. And then if you don't happen to finish, I would read on the flight, the longest flight that you have that takes you all the way to Bologna or wherever you're going.
And your notes were very well written, because you have very good handwriting. Which made it easy.
I don't know if that was sarcastic.
No, it was not sarcastic. I remember it well.
I read it about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely do that, and yeah, don't put it off. It's not going to be enjoyable, like, it's because some people are gonna get there, they're gonna be all done, you know, they're gonna be wanting to do all this sort of stuff, and you're going to be stuck in your dorm reading and missing out on stuff. So
Plus the notes are really due the very first day, like
Oh, no,
almost
yeah.
all of them.
yeah, they are.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
No slide lines this time.
So I would definitely get to that. It'll pay off at the end, and you'll be like, yes, I kind of. They were very interesting also, so it's not just like a boring read or anything like that. So you'll learn a lot from what you read, especially since it touches on like Giancarlo De Carlo, right? Yeah. So you're going to live basically for 4 months in his work, so it's going to be fun. When you get there, we'll say, when I first got there, it was a shock because in America we're so used and accustomed to have everything, you know, everything like our tub or stuff like that. When you get there, it's going to be a little different. So just be prepared for that. And also, don't take anything like iron or like trimmers or anything like that. I was that student
Or
when
hair dryers, they explode, yeah.
I took my trimmer, and the first night that I was there, I plugged it in with the adapter, and it blew up, and the lights went out.
That was you?
But I fixed it. I went on the break and like.
You can get an international hair dryer for certain that has the
Yeah.
different voltages, but I don't know about trimmers.
Oh no! Well, I had to buy a new one at the little mall. They have a little like a mall shopping mall there, so you could get like a hair dryers or anything like that.
That would be better than bringing it.
Yeah, because if you take it, more than likely you'll bust it. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Any
You
questions?
guys, yeah, questions?
It's the last meeting.
I know there's questions. I was like, full of them.
What?
We talked about credit cards, what about personal checkbooks, do those work overseas?
No,
Nobody really uses it yet.
no one uses checkbook. Cash usually works great.
And they like exact change.
They love exaction.
If you don't have exact change, they'll give you the nastiest stare.
I don't know what it is, I don't know,
Your
maybe they
ancestors
can't
will
go
do it.
pick up rolls of change like we do, so they're completely dependent on the change they don't
Yeah.
get to. They just seem to get very upset if you don't have the correct change.
Which is why you go to you go to like a grocery, you're not gonna break
Yeah,
that
because
when
the
you're buying a
ATM
gelato.
sometimes will give you 50 euros.
They want
and nobody wants to.
Exactly €2
You have to
for
go to a
that gelato,
big
not
place
20.
like the supermarket to break.
Yeah.
And always
Super
carry
Bowl.
cash because not all the places that you go eat, like here and there, accept cards.
Yeah.
Some just strictly cash.
So like local shops and small shops cash?
So how much cash should we carry on us?
Per week?
Okay, so, depending really on your budget, if you are comfortable in budget, I would get like roughly like 150 a week.
So if you're broke, how much?
Well, the good thing is that you have the Menta, or
You have a meal plan.
you have a meal
you're
plan,
not
so
gonna
you
starve.
won't struggle with that.
Okay,
It's just going to be mainly when you go travel out to another city that it's going to, depending on what you want to eat,
You don't have a meal plan when you travel.
Yeah.
right.
Yes, there are only a few occasions where you have a meal plan for everybody to eat together, like the wine tasting, food sampling, there's a lot of good food there. But there are ways to kind of eat cheap, you'll discover kebabs.
Oh.
Kebabs are the cheapest way to eat.
Ty's like, yeah. How many kebabs did you eat?
How many carts did I go through?
He keeps a photograph of every kebab.
Oh, you kept the card.
Yes.
I've got 4 left.
Oh.
And then you get a free one.
What is that, like this type of?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's going back, you can tell he's getting ready.
Because, well, I mean, we didn't, this is a small detail, but if you look for the Ristorante, it says Ristorante, you think, oh, go there, I recognize Ristorante. Well, that really means a sit-down, nice place, and they're quite different than an American dining. And when you go to a restaurant in the US, even a pretty nice one, they're expecting that the table's gonna turn over 2 or 3 times for the evening, 3 or 4 times, and the waiter's kind of serving you fast and wants to get you out, because he gets the next person in, serves them fast, gets them out. They tend to be, once you pay for a sit-down meal, you have, first of all, you pay for the table, right off the bat. You're paying like at least €2.50, if not €3 for the table, just for sitting down. They call it the coperto, which is supposed to be paying for the bread, but it really means you're paying for the right to sit at that table. And so it seems like any time you sit down for a meal, it can be it can be steep, it can be expensive. So
2 hours.
it can be, you can discover these kind of
Yeah.
quicker places to eat. Like the kebab is like, I mean, they're mostly Turkish and Syrian immigrants and stuff, but they don't tend to have so much fast food, but the kebabs are everywhere. But you don't get to really sit down except at a counter. You might stand there and eat. I don't know how many options there are to eat inexpensively where you can sit down in town, except for pizza at night.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
usually the best deal. Pizza.
Yeah, you can eat over there with like €3. There's like this pizzeria.
In town?
In town. It's by Piazza La Repubblica. It's right there. It's in the middle slope. You'll see it. It's right next to a pharmacy and a gelateria. But yeah, you could eat with like €3. You drink and your good portion and be filled up. I mean, even when you go out to other cities, you'll notice all these little locations that they're not necessarily like Ms. Bassar was saying sit down, but it'll get you.
Yeah, we'll talk about the different types of eateries, because there's all different kinds.
But don't eat near the
Piazza San Marco, with the infamous €12 single espresso for €12.
Yeah. Don't eat in any location that is like touristy because that's when you're going to really pay for stuff.
There's photographs.
Like San Antonio, look for like something extremely.
It's pretty much like San Antonio. You go to the river walk. It's
Yeah.
the same thing.
If there's photographs of the food,
Sound good.
If they serve spaghetti also, or like, what was it? If they have like,
Do they have like Alfredo or something like
yeah,
that?
if they have that, don't go there.
Yeah.
Because it's not real. It's Americanized type of thing.
Yeah, don't think of American.
Other questions?
Other questions?
Must be other
You guys are like so smart, you figure it out.
I guess like piggybacking off of that, on average, how much are you spending like on the weekend trip?
This is not the right person to ask. How much, on average, how much do you need for the whole semester, including the fee? How
Not
much is the
asking
program
what
costing you?
Eddie's- Not asking what Eddie spent.
I would say for the whole semester extra like 3,000-4,000.
What? What? That's you.
That's
Or-
more,
or two.
I've had multiple.
that's more than what my wife and I spent, and we're also buying,
Well-
like every other meal, we cook ourselves.
Well, that's including also like trips, like spring break and everything.
Spring break.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a little
Oh, you
steeper.
mean like spring break?
Yeah, spring
hotels?
break and everything included. And if you happen to purchase, a jacket or something, that's roughly. But I mean, if you're
Eddie
tight,
spends freely, I
you
know.
can can make it with like 1,000, like 1,500, 2,000 easily.
Some people did not travel over spring break, there is a place for you to stay.
And you'll
There's
get
also plenty of local things to do, plenty of wonderful little local towns that go spring break, you know how you grow up in spring break, you say the door.
Okay, that was my question of the like.
Okay.
Travel
They
local.
don't need like.
Okay.
Travel local.
So you're gonna actually like this because if you happen to be a little bit tighter in spring break and you really want to go somewhere, I believe it was during that time that UTSA will give you a refund for not using the facilities here in the U.S. Roughly, I know we got like $700 out of that.
At that point. I don't know how they're, I don't know how they're handling it this year, because they changed,
What?
You have to talk to Megan.
yeah, I don't know how they're.
She was telling me, because I told her about that I was not going to use the transportation or the rec, and she said that she was going to get a form, and so to go look for her before we take off so I could fill up the form and then they'll turn it into fiscal services. And then
Oh, that way you can do it immediately.
Yeah.
You have to do the form first.
Yeah.
Can
Oh,
you,
yeah.
can you please send me that email so I can?
Well, I'll talk to her personally, but I
I
could.
can circulate
Okay.
it to everyone.
Okay.
You send it to me, that way I'll make sure all of you get it. Because here's information which will help all of you, therefore. Yes.
I would take your passport.
Okay, guys, well, I thank you once again, and look forward to seeing you all. Don't forget to send your flight information to me, and Ruby, it's good that you showed up, because I knew